Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. I am Andrew Musgrove. I hope you guys are all doing well and thank you very much for tuning in. However, you are doing so. If you're on the audio only channel, please do leave us a rating and review. And if you're over on YouTube, please hit thumbs up, please hit subscribe and get into the comments as well. Your support is greatly appreciated. Plenty to talk about on this wonderful sunny Thursday afternoon up here on Tyneside. Yes, the sun is shining and matching the feeling of everybody connected to Newcastle United because they picked up a vital 3 points on Wednesday evening against Brentford, a 2-1 victory, and that is crucial in the race for Champions League qualification for next season. So the good vibes are still there, the positivity is still rolling, and so it should be, especially on the back of that Carabao Cup victory and now vital 3 points in the Premier League. More on that in a moment, but we're going to start with some breaking news this afternoon, and it is that Fabian Schär has extended his contract at St James's Park until the end of the 2025-26 season. The 33-year-old, no secret that he was going to stop beyond this summer. That is when his deal expired. So he was never going to leave on free. Newcastle United were always going to sign a note. We were just waiting for confirmation of that. And there it is. He has been a major part of Eddie Howe's side over the last few seasons. One of the first names on the team sheet for Howe. And that partnership this season with Dan Burn has just gone from strength to strength, probably peaking in that Wembley final against Liverpool, where they were absolutely brilliant. He's played 221 times for Newcastle United, scoring 19 goals, often the most memorable strikes, long-range efforts. We all remember that one against PSG in the Champions League, but he scored various other ones, which are no doubt you will put down as your favourite Fabian Schär goals. Talking about signing the new extension, Fabian said, "I'm buzzing to extend my stay here. It's been a very good few weeks for everybody at Newcastle United after winning the Carabao Cup. And I'm really happy now to sign another contract with this amazing club. It's my 7th season here, and everybody knows how happy I am at the club, how comfortable I feel in the city. So I'm really glad to be continuing that. Now it's about looking forward and finishing the season as strong as possible." I mean, 7 seasons, 2018. It really doesn't seem like he's been here that long, but that is a massive amount of time to stay at one club in this day and age. Signed for, I think it was like £3.5 million from Deportivo La Coruña. That goes down as one of the best bargains this club has ever managed to get out of a transfer market. He's up there with Iosi Prez in terms of being cost effective. What an absolute bargain Fabian Schär has proved to be. Eddie Howe added, "Fabian has been outstanding in my time at the club, as well as his performances on the pitch. He's shown a fantastic attitude in the group. He has been the heartbeat of the club's season so far, and he'll continue to be a key player for us as we strive to finish as high in the table as possible." And Paul Mitchell said, "We are pleased to extend Fabian's contract. He's played a significant role in the club's growth in recent years and continues to have an important role to play on and off the pitch. We take a strategic view on sustaining and building the squad and will continue to work collaboratively to ensure our squad dynamic is optimized for success in the short and long term." So what does the future hold short term for Fabian Schär over the next year? Obviously, next season. Will he be first choice? I don't think he will be. You guys, no doubt, listen to this podcast, watch it on a regular basis. You know my thoughts when it comes to Fabian Schär. Great servant, but I would let him go this summer. I'm not against him signing a new deal. I can understand the reasons behind it, especially when it comes to squad depth. Whatever European competition Newcastle United are playing in next season, they're going to need that squad depth. And it's not just about numbers, it's about ability and about attitude. And Fabian Schär has fantastic attitude and great ability. So I can totally understand why they've done that. And with it being a year extension, it's a relatively low risk. But will he be first choice? I don't think so. I think the Carabao Cup final aside, the weeks leading up to that, maybe even months, you could argue, he's not been at his best. Mistakes creeping back into his game. And look, under Eddie Howe, he's become a top-class Premier League centre-back. His game, I felt, was always riddled with errors under the likes of Rafa Benitez or Steve Bruce. But what Eddie Howe has done is turned that around, and he's just discovered this just amazing player who can pass the ball, but defensively, fantastic. But I do think we're starting to see little bits of errors creep back into his game. So I don't think Newcastle United can afford to have him as first choice next season. That's not to say he won't compete, but I do think Newcastle will still go out and sign a right-sided centre-back who will come in as first choice. But of course, there will always be a chance for Fabian Schär to compete with him and get that space. I mean, look, Dan Burns, Sven Botman, is it going to be Botman walks back into the starting 11 when fit? I don't think that is guaranteed. Harvey Barnes, Anthony Gordon, same question there. I don't think that's guaranteed that Gordon walks straight back in. So that element of competition is always going to be absolutely crucial, especially given that Newcastle United will be playing European football next season. So, yeah, Fabian Schär, extension till the end of the next campaign. Well-deserved, great servants, and he will offer something to Eddie Howe and his squad, whether he's first choice or indeed competing to be in the first team. Right, Newcastle United versus Brentford. 2-1 to the Magpies last night up at St James's Park. Wasn't the best of games. Not a game you'll remember. Won't live long in the memory. But it was all about the 3 points. That is what mattered, because there was 10 games left, and that few spaces in the Premier League when Newcastle United found themselves so tight, one defeat, and the outlook on the rest of the season can look a little bit different. So important that they got the victory last night against what was a difficult Brentford side. They've got some really good attacking players. So Newcastle United had to be at their best to beat them. And actually, they weren't, and they still beat them. So I think that serves as a reminder to the players themselves, to the fans, and to rivals. Look what Newcastle United did when maybe they were operating at 70, 80%. They beat a very good Brentford side. So imagine what they can do in a week's time when they've had more time on the training pitch to really refocus, to really move on from that Carabao Cup victory. They can start blowing teams away. Because, of course, there was talk of a hangover from that Wembley weekend. How would all the celebrations impact Newcastle United and their players? Such emotion, such high, such joy, such elation. I think questions over a hangover were justified. And I think towards the end of the game, midway through the second half, perhaps they looked a little bit leggy. They looked a little bit fatigued, both physically and mentally. But they came out the other side with 3 points when they weren't at their best. Just imagine how they can perform and how they can win games when they are at their best. And that really excites me for what's to come in the now final 9 games of the season. I think they set the tone last night by picking up the 3 points. That's the best thing they could have done. And it gives you the perfect foundation to get that little bit more energy, that little bit more clinicalness, that little bit more that end product. And it sends you into the final 9 games now on a real high. And they stand a really good chance of clinching Champions League football for next season. They're 5th, 50 points, City above them by a point in 4th there. Chelsea play Spurs tonight. They're 6th on 49. Then you've got Villa on 48 and Brighton on 47. And then there's a little bit of a gap down to Fulham on 45, Bournemouth on 44, Brentford on 41. But things could have been so different. Newcastle United lost Brentford last night. Brentford would have been 3 points. What would have been? There would have been 44. And so 3 points behind them. You look at how Bournemouth have done, over recent weeks. We were talking about them maybe sneaking into the Champions League, and they haven't won in their last 5. They've only won 1 in their last 6. They've lost their last 2. They've lost 4 of their last 5, and they've gone from potentially Champions League contenders down to 10th, and yet they're still only 6 points off Newcastle United. So that shows you how congested it is in there. It shows you how much things can change pretty quickly and why it was so important to get 3 points last night. Massive 3 points, so crucial, absolutely vital. Let's talk about how it came about then, because as I said, not the best of games, but what a goal to win a game, eh? Sandro Tonali, was it a cross? Was it a goal? He says 70% cross, 30% shot. It really doesn't matter. However the win comes, we will take it. And it was how shall we describe it? Some hit. We'll not call it a strike. We'll not call it a cross. We'll describe it as a hit. and I've watched it many times. Absolutely brilliant. And we're going to talk about Tonali in a moment, because I've asked the question on social media, and I want you guys watching and listening to get involved as well. Is Sandro Tonali the best midfielder we've seen since Rob Lee? Let me know in the comments. Let me know on social media. But first off, I want to talk about the first goal. Alexander Isak getting it just on half time. He could have had maybe 2, maybe 3 in the first half. He fired one over. He rounded the defender and then the keeper. And then instead of shooting, passed it to Harvey Barnes, who was in an offside position. What I loved about that, by the way, ladies and gents, Barnes and Joelinton were absolutely fizzing at Alexander Isak, and they did not hold back. They told him exactly how they felt. And I love the fact that they're not going easy on who is arguably the best player in the squad. 20 goals he's got, this season, 24 in all competitions. He's absolutely fantastic. When we talk about 200 odd million as a price tag, we're not joking. He is that good. And yet those boys, those lads, were not holding back when they felt he'd made a mistake. And he did make a mistake. He should have fired, or should have passed it over at the Barnes when he was in an onside position. It was a bit of a silly move, but as it was, it doesn't matter. But I did love that passion and that feeling that they can voice those opinions and voice that displeasure. It tells you that there's a really good kind of relationship in the dressing room, and the person at the brunt of it isn't going to go off and sulk, just going to go and score a goal to shut you up. Love it. Brilliant. He wasn't at his best, Isak. I think he looked a little bit tired, but he gets that goal, crossing from Murphy, and Burmo slips in front of Isak, who just has to tap home. And as I mentioned there, 20 Premier League goals now, back-to-back seasons, he's got 20 goals. I think it's the first time since Alan Shearer did it. What an absolutely fantastic player he is. And even when he's not at his best, even when he's got a groin injury, as we now know he has got, he's still a massive threat. And he's going to be so important to Newcastle United if they're going to clinch Champions League football for next season. But that groin injury, it is a concern. Isak had to come off and be replaced by Callum Wilson. Eddie Howe said after the game, we hope it's nothing too serious, but he just wasn't feeling 100% in his groin. He was just a little bit unsure in his movement. So that's why we withdrew him. We have to hope, we have to keep everything crossed that it isn't anything to worry about, that he is fit for Leicester, that he starts, because quite simply, Newcastle United have not got anyone to replace him. And I know Wilson came on for him, plenty of running. The desire to do something is there, but he's not a replacement for Alexander Isak. And I know nobody is, because Isak is that good. But what you want is a player who can carry as much of a threat. And Callum Wilson, he looked a little bit rusty. He looked a little bit robotic. Of course, he hasn't played anywhere near enough minutes to maybe be as fresh as we'd like him to be. But you do worry if Isak's injury here, or reason for coming off, turns into a more serious injury and he has to miss a few games, because time is not on Newcastle's side. There's 9 games left. You can't afford to lose Alexander Isak for 1, let alone 2 or 3 games. But that being said, and I want you guys to tell me in the comments, if Alexander Isak misses Leicester, and it means, he obviously is a little bit fitter and fresher for the games coming up. Are you happy with that? Do you take that compromise and say, miss the Leicester game, arguably the second worst side in the Premier League, and you save them for more threatening sides coming up later this month, the likes of Ipswich, the likes of Manchester United? Or do you say he has to play no matter what and fire us into the Champions League? It's one of those dilemmas which I'm really keen to get your view on, so do let me know. The second goal comes from Sandro Tonali. Of course, Brian Mbeumo gets the penalty, Stonewall penalty. Nick Pope misjudges it. Wissa wins it, who, by the way, is a fantastic player. He would be a fantastic signing for Newcastle as an alternative to Alexander. He's a totally different style. He would be a good signing, as would Brian Mbeumo. That being said, Tino Livramento had Mbeumo in his pocket. Livramento has gone up against arguably the 3 best right wingers in the Premier League, Mo Salah, Jared Bowen, and Brian Mbeumo, and has kept them all quiet. Brilliant. Yes, there was maybe 1-2 moments when we saw flashes of brilliance from Mbeumo. Exactly the reason why I'm a big fan, why Newcastle United reportedly are a big fan, and I may go in for him in the summer. But on a whole, Tino Livramento at left back, keeping Mbeumo quiet. Another fantastic performance from him. But Mbeumo did get the penalty. Then it was down to Newcastle's test of character. How would you come back from that? You're a bit tired mentally. You're a bit tired physically. You've got a lot riding on this result because you know it's all about Champions League football. And it comes from a moment of accidental brilliance, shall we call it. A shot from the right-hand side, a cross from the right-hand side. I said I wasn't going to call it a shot, but I have done. A hit from the right-hand side, and it flies into the back of the net. I mean, one thing is for certain. Sandro Tonali has hit that with so much power that I'm surprised it didn't break the net. It is such a hit. As Alan Partridge would say, he's got a foot like a traction engine. What an absolute strike, cross, hit, cross, come shot, whatever you want to call it, that was. The keeper caught off guard into the back of the net. And what a way to win a game. And Tonali is winning the plaudits because of that cross, come shot, because of his performance. And what we saw from him was pace, strength, stamina. He just glides. He's just such a classy midfielder with every bit of the price tag Newcastle United paid for him. And I asked on social media whether he is the best midfielder we've seen since Rob Lee. Now, of course, we've got Bruno Guimaraes, the club captain, who was brilliant. But I don't think he's as good as Sandro Tonali. I think Sandro Tonali is better. I think he's better on the ball. I think the end product is better. I think what Bruno brings is that passion and that energy, that aggression. But I think Tonali brings what you need. I think he's a match winner more than a kind of wear your heart on the sleeve kind of thing. But you need both of those sort of characters in your midfield to win games, and then you need a powerhouse like Joe Linton, who, by the way, we will talk about in a moment, because I think his performance last night has gone under the radar. But on Tonali, the question was, is he the best midfielder since Rob Lee that we've seen at Newcastle United? Because I grew up watching Rob Lee, a goal scorer, a man with an engine on him, great stamina, could pick a pass, could fire in the back of that, could get back and disrupt play. Exactly everything that Sandro Tonali does. And he cost £750,000, which was an absolute snip of a price tag. So that's why I said Rob Lee. Of course, you have Yohan Cabaye, who was brilliant, and Bruno, as I've mentioned. But for me, Rob Lee still very much the best midfielder until Sandro Tonali that I've seen, because for me, Sandro Tonali is the best midfielder since Rob Lee, and probably is better than Rob Lee. Sorry, Rob, if you're watching. So the responses that I've had on social media, I'll just read through them and let me know what you think. We've got Phil saying, Bruno is currently our best midfielder. Tonali has the potential to be better, though. Toon Army India says, not yet, but he could be. We've got Mark saying, Gascoigne was a one pure off. Genius, but Tonali's pure class. His first touch is a pass. He's going to be up there. I hope he stays a long time. Ron says, I respectfully disagree. Rob Lee was awesome, but then came Cabaye. And while he remains what could have been, Cabaye was the closest to Rob Lee I've seen in my 30 to 35 years following Newcastle. Gary Speed was right up there too. What a warrior. But this wee Italian is some player. Mind. Sid says, yes, he's better than Rob Lee, as good as he was. Yes, says Brett, 100% was across, though. John says yes to the question. Southern Geordie says, I think he will go down as the greatest midfielder we will see. It's a big shout, but that's what he thinks. Adam says it's either him or another lad playing next to him. Bruno, he says, Cabaye was the best since Lee. But that was before Bruno and Sandro came along. Pete says, got to be. We thought Bruno was good, but Tonali is a level up. We've got Unibrow Mario saying he's on par with Bruno. We've got P. Boss saying he's only worth 70 million according to the Italian press. Meanwhile, obscure players at Brighton are valued at 100 million. Yes, I mean, he's not going anywhere, so it's pretty relevant that. And we have one person totally disagreeing, saying he's not even better than Bruno. I don't know what you're watching. My opinion, he definitely is, but that is your opinion. You are entitled to it. I just think, as some of the comments have said there, he's class. You watch him, he is just class. The way he glides and the way he can be at the box and then straight back up to the end to stop an attack, the way he's physical, gets the tackling, and then he's got that burst of pace to really get in front of them, uses his arms and his shoulders really well. He's just absolutely fantastic. I think Bruno compliments him really well. He compliments Bruno. And then you have Big Joe Linton. What an absolute player he is. And he was brilliant in the cup final. But it was interesting last night. Someone sitting next to me said, "Oh, he's been a bit quiet, as Joelinton, don't you think?" And I have to admit, in that moment, trying to think of something memorable that he had done, I couldn't think of anything. Nothing stood out. But I haven't watched the highlights back and then done a little bit of research with stats, the trusty stats. He actually, based on those two things, is probably man of the match. Especially if you read the stats, he just seemed to be everywhere. If you look at the heat map as well. So let me just read you some of the stats that I've got. So duels won, he won 13 out of 18. Accurate pass success, 81%. He made 34 passes out of 42. Aerial duels, right? He won 7 out of 10. Defensive actions, he won 7. Now, of course, everyone's talking about Tonali because he was the match winner. But you compare the stats, Tonali, 5 out of 7 duels won, 69% possession, 27 out of 39 passes, 0 aerial duels won, and 5 defensive actions. Joelinton was the man in the middle. He was the disruptor. He was the one stopping the attacks. And it just goes under the radar because maybe he didn't fly into a challenge. Maybe he wasn't as physical as usual. But I think when you look at those numbers, that tells you just how important he was and why, arguably, he probably was man of the match without doing anything that really stands out. I'm just going to look here, one of the player rating websites, because he's got 7.8, which puts him top of the list, actually. So on SofaScore, 7.7, sorry, top of the list there in terms of player ratings. And based on those stats, I can totally see why. But it's about that midfield three, isn't it? That midfield three, when everyone is on form, when everybody is fit, is there a better midfield three in the Premier League than Joelinton, Bruno, and Tonali? I'm not sure there is. I'm really, really not sure there is, because what you've got, the disruptor of Joelinton, the physical presence. You've got the kind of passion and gamesmanship of Bruno, who can also obviously pick a pass and really travels with the ball. And then you've got Tonali, who just, as we said, glides across the pitches absolutely everywhere, up and down. Every one of them's got engine on them. Every one of them can pick a pass. They're unstoppable when they're all on form. And actually, I didn't think it was Bruno's best performance last night. I thought he looked a little bit leggy, a little bit tired. I thought his decision making was a little bit off. Some of the passes didn't quite come off, but he still played all right. And that's the beauty of having 3 classy midfielders. If one's just a little bit off, the other 2 probably compensate for it, and Newcastle can still go on dominate that space. Because make no mistake about it, Brentford's midfield is decent. Damsgaard is a good player, and they've got other players in the middle there that can really, really threaten. So Newcastle had to win the midfield battle. They did do, and they did largely down to Joelinton, who for me is probably the unsung hero of last night's performance. And we just have to quickly talk about a few other players. Harvey Barnes, I thought, was very, very good as well. Keen to get involved in things. I think he knows that Anthony Gordon is now probably going to come back for Leicester. But did he do enough, Barnes, to keep Gordon out of the side? Potentially. He was threatening. He carried the ball. He was trying to shoot on goal. He had a couple of half chances, you would suggest. He gets an assist for the Tonali goal if you want to hand that to him. So I think, I don't think it's a guarantee that Gordon does come in. On the other side, Murphy gets the ball into the box and gets an assist for the Isaac. Didn't do too much else. He had a chance to get a goal, but kind of judged that. He looked like someone who was maybe, how do you describe it? I don't think he was fully there last night. He looked a little bit distracted. But hopefully he can bounce back against Leicester. I mean, look, at the end of the day, if he's distracted and still picking up assists, who are we to complain? But interesting that we saw Trippier coming off with a little bit of cramp. Of course, Emil Kraft coming on to replace him. So we'll wait and see what happens there. And Joelinton as well had to get some kind of treatment on his knee. So we keep our fingers crossed that alongside Isaac, those 2 injuries aren't anything that will keep either one of those players up, because Newcastle United need them if they're going to indeed qualify for the Champions League. But there's another threat to Joelinton, which is a little bit more worrying than his knee. He's on 9 yellow cards, okay? So he has to go the next 3 games without picking up a caution, because if he goes and picks up a yellow card, he will get a 2-game suspension, which would be absolutely horrendous. because Newcastle United need him. Can he go the next few games without picking a yellow card? And then it resets. This is Joelinton. You're betting your last penny that he's going to pick up a yellow. He didn't against Liverpool in the final, actually. And he didn't last night. Did he? No, he didn't. So we have to keep everything crossed that streak of not picking up a yellow card continues. And I'm sure when the players are aware of what could happen if indeed you do, then they kind of tighten up their aggression, tighten up their kind of discipline, and make sure that you don't pick up a yellow card. It was only Fabian Schär actually that picked up a caution last night. So Joelinton, understanding that he can't afford to pick up a 10th yellow card because he'll miss 2 games, and we haven't got the time for him to miss 2 games because every game matters in the race for Europe. But there you have it, ladies and gents. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you very much for watching. Sponsored by NordVPN. Do hit the link in your podcast description box to get an exclusive offer on your NordVPN plan. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on anything that we've talked about, whether that be Fabian Schär's extension, whether that be the performance of Isak, whether that be the performance of Tonali. Did he mean it? He said 70% cross, 30% shot. Do you believe him? Doesn't matter. Who cares? 3 points is all that matters. Newcastle United set the tone, get the ball rolling, get the momentum building for now what is a 9-game season. And fingers crossed they can finish it with Champions League qualification. Leicester up next on Monday night. Plenty of content coming your way to preview that game. But I've been Andrew Musgrove. Hit like, hit subscribe, get into the comments, and we'll see you guys very soon.